Well, my heartache was after growing up in a very close family with everyone, all my extended relatives, and my mother. After my father passed away in 1956, we became even closer, and so between my sisters, my brother, my mother, everyone, and my mother passed away in 2013 at the age of 99. Her death was expected. We knew the time was coming because she was on hospice, and they let you know. Her death was more or less a comfort, because after 99 years you don't want to see this person just laying there. You know their time is done, you know their body's done. So it was very comforting when God took her. 5 months later, my sister Gretchen was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and died 2 weeks after her diagnosis. The day that she was buried, her husband, who also had cancer but was not metastatic, just quit eating. He was done. He could not live without her. They had been married 52 years. There was no amount of begging. He wanted to go, and he wanted to be with her. The promise of salvation. And I also knew that grief was a process everyone is going to go through. Every person on earth. We all know we're born, we're going to die. It's what happens in between. But my faith is what guided me, and through the encouragement of my husband Leroy, went to the Mercy grief group. It was a 6-week session, and every single person at that group was grieving. We all were able to sit and talk about the loss that we had. Some people, it was just a passing of a spouse. Others was a grandparent who lost a grandchild in a car accident. So things that were expected, like when I lost my mother, or things that were shocking, like when I lost my sister Gretchen, unexpectedly. And through that group, we embraced each other, and we were able to be open and talk about our loss and learn to share what was going on in our lives. Mercy, I would reach out to a hospice, maybe a hospice group or something, because they would be able to guide someone who was looking for a grief group to go through. Based on the Bible, you do a long Bible study. There are some grief groups that aren't as long, and different purposes. Taught a couple of sessions with Joe Mathis, and we based ours on Adam Hamilton's book, Why? And then there's also another book called Good Grief, and we used parts of that. I had to ask God to guide me through this. I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. I had to go to the Lord, and I had to say, please guide me through this, even if it's every minute or every day, whatever it takes. And I had to really learn to lean on the Holy Spirit. To go to the Lord, cry, weep if you have to, cry some more, weep. Ask the Lord to surround you with His arms. Ask Him to guide you to people that you can talk to. If it's one person, if it's a group of people, do not isolate yourself. let the grief process become a natural process for you. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it's a short time, but allow yourself to go through it, and you will come through it. I promise you'll come through it.
So the heartache was I lost my wife in 2016 from breast cancer. She was diagnosed early in January of 2016, and she wound up passing away in Alaska on August the 3rd of that year. I didn't embrace any part of it. Watching her go through that 7 months was really difficult. I kept myself as busy as possible to get through it, and it was very difficult. She had the strength, and I fed off of her strength. I wasn't open to that at all. We just became new members right before the diagnosis at First Washington, and people were coming over with dinners, and as the main breadwinner of the house, and the person that always took care of things and always fixed things, I couldn't fix this. I couldn't take care of it, and I had a great job. I was making good money, and I had great insurance, and I wasn't very open to people coming. I tried to shut it down and tell her that, you know, I can do this, and I asked the people at church, told them that, you know, there was other people that had better needs or more needs than we did, and she had told me that she was trying to take care of me when I was trying to take care of her, and just to let those people do that. So. Well, the promise was that he would never leave me. And when I was in Alaska, there was a great sense of calm, and I knew he was there. When everyone started coming, and finally I had to embrace strangers coming to help and bringing gifts and getting involved in what was going on. That was difficult for me to accept at first, but I think I discovered that was the Holy Spirit at work, and once I accepted that, it all just fell into place. About a year after she passed, my son and I finished the trip. And we had one of her closest friends with us, and so we were able to finish the trip. And the last time I went on a mission trip with church. Troy had asked me, I was just getting ready to retire. He says, you want to go on a mission trip? And I was like, sure, let's go. You know, I said, we're going to Alaska. I was like, well, okay, I'm in. And it's really exactly what I needed. Well, I was able to give back. I think that was the biggest part of it. There was kids there, and at first I told Troy, I said, boy, I don't know how this is going to work. There's going to be 24 kids running all over the place, and well, they were young adults, and that was the best thing. I was able to connect with those young people, and had a good time serving, and I just felt like I was able to get my sense of humor back, which was always a part of my life, and it was missing. And I was able to reclaim that, and then giving back, working in the homeless shelter and doing things around the church really helped me release. The first day we were there, we were supposed to introduce ourselves, and like I said, there was 24 children, kids, and 4 adults, plus the people from our church. And when it was my turn to introduce myself and say something about me, I said, hi, my name is Mike. I just got out of prison, which really shocked those 4 adults, believe it or not. And then that's just released after that happened. It was a whole different trip for me. Oh, it took a while. I just wanted to be left alone. I just stayed in the back room, and my neighbors kept checking on me and my friends and family. And at church, I was asked to attend a discipleship class, and that went a whole school year. It gave me a chance to really read the Bible and understand the Bible really for the first time. Always was taken to church, always was brought to church, but I was attending church for the first time for myself and getting a lot out of it. And I really met some great people through those classes, and then joined small groups after that for someone who just really wanted to be left alone and not around people. That has really changed. A lot of friends and family made sure that I wasn't just sitting there. My hope is that you let people in, that you let your friends and family around you, and I hope that you have that support that I had. I first resisted it, and boy, was that ever wrong. Just let those people help, and when it's time, you can help them. Of course, church. I relied on Troy a lot, and then I found Shara. Her and I met. Was really quite a story the way we met. She had just gotten back from a trip to the Middle East, and I was in a trip in Alaska, and some friends of mine decided to play matchmaker, and they talked to Shara at work when she was working at the hospital, and convinced her, kicking and screaming, that I was an okay guy, which, wow. She happened to accidentally pull me up on Facebook and asked me to be friends, and well, it all started that way. So it was really a match made from God. I truly believe that. My hope is that everyone who's going through what so many of us do, that can find the friends that I have and the support group, and that they don't try to shut people out of their lives. I tried so hard just to be left alone in my room, and my neighbors and my friends, they just wouldn't have it. And I hope that everyone has the support that I have, and feel and know the way I do that God's there. He was there. Of course, He couldn't or didn't stop it, but He was there for me and prepared me for what was to come next.
The hardest part? Well, one, I lost my spouse. But I also lost the breadwinner of the family. He's the one that provided our health insurance. He was the dad. He was the husband. He was the person who cleaned the gutters. Not to say that, I needed him for all of those things. There's other people that can do that. But what was the hardest part? I think just, my husband's gone. Where do you fit in? Where I sat at church, that's where Steve and I sat at church. Who do we hang out with? That was hard too, because they're all couples, and now I'm not a couple. That was hard. I didn't know where I fit, not just socially, but at church. Where do we sit? And I didn't go sit in the same place. Whenever I went into church, I went to the right instead of normally going to the left, because I'm kind of reclaiming who I am and who our family is. And it was one way when Steve was around, and it was a different way when he was gone. To embrace change. Now that's interesting that you would say embrace change. because life is always changing, and where I work, I see changing happen all the time. I'm going to say it was probably a good 3 to 6 months before I was able to really embrace, okay, here we are. And really, actually, now that I think about that, when did I embrace the change? When the paperwork started to dwindle. Because when someone dies, there is all this paperwork that has to happen. And whenever you're all of a sudden the single mom now, and you have to get insurance in line for 3 children, 3 children, you have to get insurance situated and settled, and not just health insurance, but dental insurance as well. And there's all these forms, and if you've got the union involved, there's other things that are involved. When the paperwork and the cards started to dwindle in the mail, then that's when I think I was just much more embracing at that point, because that was reality. Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God." Now there's many more verses and words that come after that, but in the beginning, God. So this is a new beginning for me and for my family. And as long as we, in the beginning, God, comma, whatever else, as long as He is first and foremost there, the rest of it will fall in place. There's also a verse in Joel that says, "I will reclaim," I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, but "I will reclaim the years the locusts have eaten." So those years that I was by myself and figuring out how to do this, and full of sadness, God will reclaim those years for me, and He has. My mom sent me to Israel. I graduated from Bible college, and Mother, as a gift, gave me the opportunity to go to Israel. I turned that trip down 3 times because it was too expensive. And then she fussed at me and she said, "You are denying me the opportunity to bless you, and I don't get to receive a blessing from the Lord for doing this." So I went to Israel. I made a request of putting something in the Wailing Wall. And I wasn't going to do that, but the tour guide that was with us, he said, "Do you like to journal?" Absolutely. And that's how I process through a lot of things. And he said, "Just write your prayer request and put it in the Wailing Wall as a journaling technique. Will you ever get to do that again?" Nope. So one of the things that I had written in my prayer request to the Lord and put in the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, in the city, was that He would send me a husband who loved the Lord. And so what has changed since then and given me hope? Michael Newbert. And so we were married last May, and that was 4 years after each one of our spouses had passed. And for us, that was a time period that worked. Not everybody, some people wait 12, 15 years. Some people, they turn around pretty quickly and find another mate. But for me, the timing was God's, and I was ready. I always had kind of described things as good things happened in my life with career and grandbabies and school and such. There was never someone to sit on the other end of the couch to talk to. My hope would be for them that you don't want to, but go to church. It feels awful and it feels uncomfortable to be there by yourself. But there in church, that's whenever you get to give back to God. You get to give Him your attendance. You get to give Him your praise and your singing, whether you're singing in your heart or you're singing out loud. It's where you get to receive teaching from a good pastor, and he is giving you information from the Lord, not just his own words. He is there as a messenger from God to you. Find yourself a good church to be in. That's also where you're going to find your support group, your people in there. Be wise about financial decisions that you make. I have often said that 3 most important people in my life after Stephen died was my accountant, my investor advisor, and a lawyer. You need to get wise counsel and wise decisions need to be made, and you need to be able to talk them over with people who are not vested in you or know they don't have anything to gain from you. Of course, we pay these people, but that's also what makes the information that they give you good and sound. But you need to find people that are like you. So if there's a grief group that you can go to, tap into that for however long you want. I encourage you to go a time or two, and if you want to step back, I always have told the kids, you can try anything, any sport or any club for 3 times. And you go the first time you make your decision, you go the second time because it's not new, and you get to choose. Do I want to be a part of this, yes or no? You go that third time, and this is where you choose. Yeah, I'm going to continue, or no, I'm not. You get to quit something after the third time. Track, football, 4-H, Boy Scouts. You get to go, you have to go 3 times. And I would say that the same for church. I would say that the same for a grief group or any other kind of grouping of people. Go 1 time because you should. It's going to be nervous and that's going to go well. Go the second time because you're not so nervous, and just kind of observe and decide, is this going to work for me? Let's go 1 more time. And at the end of that, that's when you make your decision. So find a grief group to go to and give it 3 chances. Same with church. See if that'll fit for you. And if one doesn't, then go to another Bible-believing one. And same thing, at least 3 visits.
Back at the end of March 2020, I lost my job. And it was just a really tough time to lose your job and employment. You know, at that point in time, I was like, all right, well, I got to find another job. I had several interviews lined up for the following weeks, like a day or 2 after I lost my job, and then April hit, and then everybody was on a hiring freeze at that point. So I think the main heartache at that point in time was the uncertainty of only having Molly's income going forward. I mean, it was tough, right? It was one of those situations where, yeah, we had no idea what was going to happen. So we had to do a lot of stuff that we hadn't really done before or gone through as a couple.
Like what?
Well, we had to sit down and figure out, okay, if this continues on, like what financially are our plans? We have this much, coming in, this much going out. Like, how long can we continue to live off just her income, and kind of the decisions we have to make.
When Ryan lost his job, it was that scary time of, all the uncertainty of what was happening with COVID, but then also, where will we come up with the money that we're losing out on now? And so, like Ryan was saying, we had to sit down and look over our finances and really decide on like where we're going to be focusing our spending and going over those things. And in that time, it was actually really cool because there were things that kept popping up that were very helpful to us, like COVID relief or stimulus checks. And anytime something would, like a bone would be thrown our way, we felt like, wow, that's such a blessing for us. Loan payments and things like that, they've been frozen, and it was just one of the burdens that could be taken off of our shoulders in that time. And we saw God through that, and with each other, the hope that we saw came from God because He kept us together, and He kept us. We had to lean on each other in that time, and
yeah, and I think our relationship is better now than it ever has been. And I would say that, one of the other blessings that came out of this whole thing was we got to spend, like, I don't know,
I think I was home for something like almost 100 days straight, which if you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. Like, it's awesome. But like when Mason was like 6 months old, you know, until he was like 9 months old. So from the time he was like crawling to the time he was walking, we got to spend pretty much every day with him and watch his development. And that was something that was really awesome and really build a strong relationship with him, because not many people, you know, not many parents get to do that, you know, especially with both of us working, and then, you know, especially not many dads. And so it was a really cool opportunity to get to spend that much time with him. And that was definitely, in my opinion, the biggest blessing that came out of the whole thing. It's hard, right? Because it's like, you know, I doubt that, you know, I'll get to have that same time with, you know, with our second child, which is unfortunate, but like all the things that you learn from doing that with, you know, when we got to stay home with Mason, like just how special those months are, right? And how, you know, you need to be present in the moment, you know, to kind of soak all that in, because there's so many things, like the development and the milestones that you hit like at that age are just, it's insane. So it's really cool to watch that, and to have seen it once, you know, was really cool, and hopefully we're as prepared for the second one, more prepared.
Yeah, I mean, like in that time of where you feel like everything else around you is crashing down and you're just not sure of what's happening and all these new things are going on, it does really center you to focus on what really matters. And I believe that God gave us that time together as we were starting our family. Mason was so little that He brought us together to focus on what really matters, which is our family and taking care of each other.
Just
and
Mason either. It's about time as a family for sure.
Yeah, and also for Ryan and I, like he was saying, how we've gotten closer, and we can manage our own relationship better because we were put through a hardship, and we really had to
push through it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like one of those things that it was definitely tough, and definitely tested my patience at times.
Yeah, it was, that time was definitely really hard for me. Ryan was the calm one in the situation, and I was the one that was really worried about a lot, just wondering like, how are we gonna pay for these bills, and when will you get another job? Like, you have to work, I'm just a teacher, like and he kept calm. He kept reminding me it'll be okay. I'm not worried about it. I will find another job. And he was just that constant, like, reassurance that things were going to be okay.